Hello everyone, welcome to Sparkle English. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about 8 basic comma rules, and these are English writing essentials. It is very important to have proper punctuation and to use commas correctly when you're writing in English. So let's get started. I recommend you grab a pen and paper or something to take notes because we will be doing a little bit of practice as we go along for each rule. So let's get started. Rule number 1. Use commas to separate items in a series of 3 or more things. Remember that an item may refer to a noun, verb, or adjective phrase. And note that the usage of a comma to separate the second to last item is optional. We call this an Oxford comma. I like to use it, but it's not necessary. So examples. I bought cheese and bread. As you can see, these are only 2 different items, so you don't need to put a comma. But if you had 3 items, I bought ham, comma, cheese, comma, and bread. Then you would put commas after ham and after cheese. Again, this one is optional because it's the second last item. If you had another item in here, I bought ham, comma, cheese, comma, beef, comma, and bread, but you'd have to put the comma after cheese, but you wouldn't after beef because it would be the second last item. More examples. We went running, comma, swimming, comma, and biking on the weekend. She wore a red hat, comma, green scarf, comma, and black pants to the party. Again, this comma here, which we call the Oxford comma, it is optional, but I like to use it. And if you're going to use the Oxford comma, you should be consistent in your writing. That's the most important. So if you decide to use this comma, then always use it in your entire whatever you're writing, and that way you're showing consistency with your style. So let's do a bit of practice. Where do you need to place commas in these sentences? We drank water, beer, and coffee at dinner with our friends. He went swimming, rode a bike, and played tennis at the sports camp. The man was handsome, tall, and strong. So I'll give you a second if you want to pause this, and now I want to go over the answers with you. So I'll grab my pen here. First, these are all in a list, so we have to separate them. We drank water, comma, beer, comma, and coffee at dinner with our friends. Remember, this comma here is optional, but I like to use this comma, the Oxford comma. He went swimming, comma, rode a bike, comma, and played tennis at the sports camp. Finally, the man was handsome, comma, tall, comma, and strong. Okay, so rule number 2. Use a comma to separate independent clauses, complete thoughts, when they are joined by the following conjunctions: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So when these words are used as conjunctions, usually in the middle of the sentence, we have to use a comma to separate independent clauses. Now this F.A.N.B.O.Y.S is a way you can remember it. So F, for, A, and, N, nor, B, but, O, or, Y, yet, S, so. F.A.N.B.O.Y.S, okay? The most common ones you'll run into, and, but, or, and so. And note that the comma comes before the conjunction. So some examples. So this would be incorrect. I want to quit my job, but I need the money. Correct would be, I want to quit my job, comma, but I need the money. In this example, there are 2 independent clauses. I want to quit my job. That is a complete thought. An independent clause is a complete thought. It's a sentence that can stand by itself. I want to quit my job. It's a complete sentence. And the second independent clause, the second complete thought, I need the money. So these clauses are separated by a comma before the conjunction but because they are 2 independent clauses. So more examples. We can go to a basketball game on Saturday, comma, or we can see that new James Bond movie. Again, this is a full sentence, a complete thought, and this as well. We can see that new James Bond movie. It's also a complete thought, so we need to have a comma before the conjunction. I'm really tired today, so I'm not going to go to the party tonight. Again, this is a complete thought. It's an independent clause, and so is this. I'm not going to go to the party tonight. The weather was cold, comma, yet we had a great time. Okay? So again, we'll do some practice. Where do you need to place commas in these sentences? Jack had an argument with Daniel and he got fired from his job. I'm good at writing short stories, yet I prefer reading novels. It was raining, so I took an umbrella. So again, let's get my little pen out. Jack had an argument with Daniel, comma, and he got fired from his job. Again, complete thought, and this also a complete thought. I'm good at writing short stories, comma, yet I prefer reading novels. It was raining, comma, so I took an umbrella. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. Number 3, use a comma to separate a dependent clause, which is an incomplete thought, from an independent clause, which is a complete thought. So example, when I move to Spain, comma, you can come visit me. So when I move to Spain is not an independent clause. You can't just have a sentence that says, when I move to Spain. You need to have this independent clause. When I move to Spain, comma, you can come visit me, because you can come visit me is a complete thought. If you finish your reports by Thursday, comma, I'll give you Friday off. Again, if you finish your reports by Thursday is a dependent clause. It's an incomplete thought. It needs this part of the sentence, the second part, to make sense. So you have to put a comma here to separate the dependent clause and the independent clause. If you finish your reports by Thursday, comma, I'll give you Friday off. So again, let's do some practice. Because he is only 17, he can't buy beer at the store. If you keep procrastinating, you'll never finish your work on time. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. So again, we're starting with the dependent clause, because he is only 17, comma, he can't buy beer at the store. If you keep procrastinating, comma, you'll never finish your work on time. When I grow up, comma, I want to be a doctor. Okay? Now, one thing that's important to note is this begins with the dependent clause. Okay? All of these begin with the dependent clause. I'll just put a D so we know. Dependent, dependent. And all of these on this side are the independent clauses. Now, if you switched these around, if you said, I want to be a doctor when I grow up, you would not need to put a comma. You would not need to put a comma if it said, he can't buy beer at the store because he is only 17. Or, you'll never finish your work on time if you keep procrastinating. All of these sentences we can switch around, but if we switch them around and start with the independent clause, we do not need to put a comma. As these words here, because, if, and when, they make it so we don't need to use that comma. But when it begins with a dependent clause, we have to use the comma. Okay? Rule number 4. Use a comma to separate any word or phrase from the rest of the sentence that isn't essential to the sentence's meaning. So for example, Jane, my girlfriend, is coming to the party tonight. This part here, my girlfriend, it doesn't change the rest of the sentence. It's not important to the sentence. So you could say, Jane is coming to the party tonight. But my girlfriend is just a little bit of extra information. So we put Jane, comma, my girlfriend, is coming to the party tonight. More examples. My great aunt, who is 80, walks 3 miles every day. Red wine, my favorite drink, is good for heart health. So these two sentences as well, if we take out what's in between the commas, who is 80, the sentence still makes sense, and it still is, it's just a little bit of extra information. It's not imperative or very important to the sentence. So if we're adding extra information, maybe sometimes it's a word or a phrase like this, then you put commas because it's not essential. Okay? So let's do some practice. Dr. Jones, my family doctor, only works on Tuesdays at her clinic. Fresh food items, especially fruits and vegetables, are good to eat on a daily basis. So again, look at this and think, okay, what's the meat of the sentence? What's the most important part of the sentence? And then what's just the little bit of extra information that's not changing the sentence or not extremely important to the sentence? Okay, so Dr. Jones, my family doctor, only works on Tuesdays at her clinic. Because Dr. Jones only works on Tuesdays at her clinic, that's the main part of the sentence. This is just extra information. Fresh food items, especially fruits and vegetables, are good to eat on a daily basis. Okay, Rule 5. Use a comma to separate a quotation from the rest of a sentence. So in American English, commas always go before closing quotation marks. In British English, usually it's afterwards, but we're going to focus on American English in this lesson. So examples, I am exhausted, he said. Okay, so because this is not, if this sentence ended and it was just I am exhausted and this wasn't here, the he said, this would end in a period. But because this is part of a sentence, we have to have a comma here before the quotation and then put he said. Jack's boss yelled, quotation, get back to work. Remember, of course, to have a space in between as well. Again, this is because this quotation here is part of this sentence. So if you're beginning with a quotation and then you have this little tag at the end, you'd have the comma after the final word before the quotation. But if you're beginning with this little tag here, Jack's boss yelled, then you have get back to work. Okay? Finally, this one is a little bit more difficult because we have a tag, the attributive tag, in between. So we have to go, when you leave the room, my mother yelled, turn off the lights. So when you leave the room, turn off the lights is the full sentence. But because we have this little tag here in the middle, it's all still one sentence. So we have to put a comma, then the quotation. And this is not a part of the quotation. The mother didn't yell this. It's the mother who's yelling the words that are in the quotation. So then we put another comma, turn off the lights. Okay, very important. If a quotation before an attributive tag ends in a question mark or exclamation point, don't use a comma. So we mean, by these tags, we mean this. He said, Jack's boss yelled, my mother yelled. So for example, where are you? He asked. Not where are you? Question mark, comma. This one we would not write, okay? We would not need a comma here because this ends in a question mark. And if it also ended in an exclamation mark, we would not put a comma here because it already has a punctuation. So let's do some practice. If you don't go to sleep now, she whispered, you'll be very tired tomorrow. Finish the report by tomorrow morning, the manager ordered. So the first one's a little bit more difficult. If you don't go to sleep now, she whispered. Now remember the comma's going after the final letter before the quotation marks. She whispered, you'll be very tired tomorrow. Because again, if you don't go to sleep now, you'll be very tired tomorrow is a full sentence. So we have to place the commas in between this tag here. Finish the report by tomorrow morning, the manager ordered. Okay? So rule number 6, use a comma to separate an introductory element from the rest of a sentence. So this is quite easy. Examples, hey, how are you today? Sorry, you're not invited to my party. Wait, what time does the meeting start? And oftentimes you'll know it's to put a comma because you have a little pause when you say this anyways. You don't go, hey, how are you today? You go, hey, how are you today? Okay? So these are all introductory words that we have to separate from the rest of the sentence. Practice. Unfortunately, I didn't finish my work on time. Yes, I am able to come to the meeting tomorrow. Oh, I'm not sure I can make it on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I didn't finish my work on time. Yes, I am able to come to the meeting tomorrow. Oh, I'm not sure I can make it on Tuesday. Okay? So rule number 7, use a comma to separate the name of a city from a country or state. So examples, I lived in Madrid, Spain for nearly a decade. The conference will be in Paris, France next spring. He is offering me a position in Toronto, Ontario. Again, this is very easy. If you're separating a city from a country or a city from a state, you have to put a comma. So, practice. I think he lives in Lisbon, Portugal. The business conference will take place in Nashville, Tennessee. I think he lives in Lisbon, Portugal, separating the city and the country. The business conference will take place in Nashville, Tennessee, separating the city and the state. And our last rule for the 8 basic comma rules is use a comma to separate the day of the week, the day of the month, and the year. So for example, today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. Lauren was born on Sunday, June 16th, 1985. Please join us on Saturday, April 4th, 2020, for the wedding of Sawyer and Jennifer. As you can see in this last one, because the date is in the middle of the sentence, we have to put a comma or place a comma after 2020 as well, whereas these other ones end in the year, so we just put a period. So let's do some practice. Tomorrow will be March 12th, 2020. The annual award ceremony will take place on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. So, first one, tomorrow will be March 12th, 2020, separating the date and the year. The annual award ceremony will take place on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Okay? So, congratulations, you've just finished your first lesson with Sparkle English on 8 different comma rules. Let me know in the comment section how you did, if the video was easy for you, if it was difficult, what part you had the most trouble with, and how you did if you decided to test yourself. How many did you get correct? How many did you not get correct? Please, in the comments, also let me know what is most difficult for you when you're learning English or writing English. Do you have problems listening, problems writing, problems with grammar, with conversation? Let me know so I can decide what kinds of videos I will release. I do plan on releasing more videos regarding punctuation, capitalization, apostrophes, abbreviations, etc. So please subscribe to Sparkle English by clicking on the button under the arrow. And I will see you in your next lesson. Thanks for watching.